All right, looks like we're up to 5, getting close. I think we've got 8 folks total who are doing stars, so we'll just give everyone a couple more minutes.
You were talking about? Hello?
Hello, who's there?
It's Hannah.
Hey, Hannah, welcome. It's Ben.
Thanks. My phone was doing weird things.
Weird. All right, so it's 4:32, and I definitely want to honor time, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is Ben Crosby, for those of you who I haven't said hello to yet. If you're able, if you could just jump on the line and tell us who you are and where you are calling in from. I know that we've already heard from Jenna and Hannah and Elizabeth. I'm wondering if there's anyone else who wants to say hello.
Hi, this is Amy. I am calling from BMA.
Hey, Amy, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Sherry. I'm calling from Apex.
Hey, Sherry, welcome as well.
Thanks.
That's 5. We've got 2 more. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So just so you know, hopefully everyone can see my screen. You'll notice at the top there's this little chat window. If you want to type something into the chat box, you can put it here. Oh, in my room, but can't hear yet. Okay. Let me just... So you'll notice that if I reply to all, it goes to everyone in the room, and you can send it to other folks as well if you have a private message. And just so everyone knows, I am recording this, and I'll be sending it out later. Great, so let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, I want to say thanks for being here, and let me get rid of this chat window. Today we're going to talk about the STAR Early Literacy and STAR Reading Math assessments that you all will be piloting both this fall and then again during the spring. So first, let's see if I can get to the next slide here. Okay, so here's our agenda for the day. We'll go over some logistics, then we'll talk about how to get ready for testing. Hopefully we'll be out of here by 5 after some questions from you all. There's a photo up here of some Monarch students taking an adaptive test last year. This work began last winter with a pilot of the MAP adaptive test and then AimsWeb, which I believe Hannah and Amy are our 2 AimsWeb pilot teachers from last year, so I want to welcome them back. And you'll see here we have some, I think these are first graders who are taking their test. They were super focused, and in general, I think they were very engaged, and we are very excited to actually expand the pilot this year. So I want to talk about one thing that you may be asking, which is why am I doing this pilot? So as I mentioned, this is work that we started last year. Originally, it was focused on finding a way for K2, for folks who are in K2 to have an individual growth score as part of their overall effectiveness pie. And now that work has expanded to K-3 with the advent of Common Core assessments next year. Only third grade through eighth grade will be tested, and so third grade sort of has a similar issue where there's no prior assessment that we can use as a baseline for growth. So we've sort of like expanded the pilot to include third grade teachers as well. In addition, our focus has sort of shifted in that now that there's sort of two broader questions that we're actually trying to answer. The first is which assessments can best support our move towards Common Core next year. So within that there's sort of two sub questions, which is which of these assessments is the best way to support teaching in K-3, and then which of these assessments is going to help best prep our students to sort of do their best once they get into the later grades. And then on top of that, it's sort of a sub question is again this sort of first reason that we actually did this work, which is the most fair and reliable way to measure student growth when our students are in kindergarten, first grade, second, and third grade. So STAR Enterprise is an adaptive test, and I want to talk briefly about how that works. This is on either a Chromebook or an iPad, and the way it works is that the first question, which you will see here with these sort of bars, is usually fairly easy. And then as students either answer a question right or wrong, i.e. green or red, the actual test sort of adapts to their level of skill. So if you get one right, the next question is harder. If you get it wrong, then you get an easier question next up. And then slowly over the course of the test, you sort of get a more accurate idea of where the student is scoring on a band of sort of hardness in a way. And so in a way, it's sort of a more reliable way of assessing an individual student's ability at any given time. So we're piloting two adaptive. The first, what is the MAP test, which I already mentioned earlier, that we actually piloted last year, and I want to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each of these tests. So with MAP, it seems to have more like interactive items, which we think will be more similar that are going to roll out next year under Smarter Balance. This this basically means that the items themselves have more clicking and dragging, and they're more of a they're like more of a task than a sort of standard 4-answer question that you would see on a normal bubble test. In addition, MAP is longer, so we think it might be more reliable. On the other hand, the growth model under MAP is different from the growth model that we use to measure growth in third grade through eighth grade using P-scores. And so, in addition with MAP, you don't get mastery standard. It just sort of tells you how your students are doing relative to other other students that actually look like them. And in that it's a longer test, we sort of worry about students getting tired and maybe losing focus on the test. With STAR, the advantages we see is that there are more extensive lessons that you can use sort of after testing, and we think that this might be a better resource in terms of planning your small groups or interventions. It's also about half as long as MAP, so it's much faster. And then the growth model that actually measures student growth from the fall to the spring is identical to SGP. On the other hand, with STAR, the actual test items are flat. This basically means that it basically looks like a regular bubble test, except it's on an iPad or it's on a laptop. And so in some ways we sort of see this as maybe not being as good at getting our students ready for Smarter Balance tests. And in addition, it is shorter, and so we worry about it not being as reliable in the way that it actually captures growth over time. I'll pause there for a second. Are there any questions about these tests? You can either say them, or if you want to actually put them into the chat box, that's fine too.
So are we, this group here, or are we both the map and the star, or is it group doing the map and we are doing the star?
Yeah, so there is one group doing map and there is one group doing star. And at the end of the year, we'll all sort of, come together and sort of just sort of, see how things went and, compare
Talk about
notes.
what did and what we like better.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Sure. Anything else? Okay. So as far as the administration schedule, we have the fall window, which is going to be from mid-September through the end of October, and we're trying to do it sort of by week. So I've reached out to about half of you so far to find a time to test. Los Angeles will be last because they have fall break last, and I will actually reach out to you all tomorrow to find a time, and then we'll come back during the spring, likely early May, and we'll have a sort of second round of assessment. There's also an option to actually test during the winter. That's only if you sort of want to do it, for your own information. It's definitely not required. As far as the tech, we will actually bring everything to campus. So we have a class set of iPads and we have a class set of Chromebooks, and we'll just show up and everything should be dialed. So hopefully it'll be very easy for you. Anyone who's in kindergarten, your students will actually have a test that requires headphones because there's a sort of like auditory guide. So they'll have that, and then we'll have mice as needed. Obviously on an iPad you can't really plug in a mouse, so there you go. As far as timing goes, each subtest takes about 30 minutes, usually less. Usually it's around 20. In kindergarten, there's only one test that's mostly focused on reading with a little bit of math. And in 1st through 3rd grade, there is a separate math test and a separate reading test. Again, each of these are 20 minutes to half an hour, and so it should be pretty quick. And there are fewer than 30 items per test. So there are two versions of STAR Enterprise, as I already mentioned. They're both aligned to Common Core. And in Kinder, it's STAR Early Literacy. There's only one test. This is made for kinders through 3rd graders. It's mostly reading and some math. It is adaptive, and again, it sort of has this. It has headphones and it sort of guides you through the test. In 1st through 3rd, it's STAR Reading and Math. So these are two separate tests, and these are adaptive that are made to basically place students on a scale of achievement in between 1st and 12th grade. Adaptive, and again, there are no headphones, so your students will be sort of reading it on screen and just sort of moving through it on their own. Any questions on that?
If we want to do it in the winter, do we just contact you to have the technology brought back to our class?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will follow up probably after our first round of testing. There'll be a survey, and you can either say then, hey, it'd be great to have this again during the winter. I think this was really good information. Or if it's January and you feel like maybe it's only half your kids that you actually want to retest, that's fine too. Anything else? Okay, awesome. So one thing that we sort of had to think about was which grades would take which test. In that the STAR Early Literacy goes up until 3rd grade, you could, in theory, actually just test everyone on that version of it. But, given that it doesn't cover math as well as the sort of, STAR Math test, we chose to actually have everyone starting in 1st grade start on the STAR Reading and Math. And, the reason for that is because in order to get a gross score over the course of the year, you have to take the same assessment. So if, for example, you were a 1st grader who took the STAR Early Literacy in the fall, and then you took the STAR Reading Math in the spring, we really couldn't actually get a gross score from that. That being said, if you are teaching maybe 1st or 2nd grade, and you have some kids that are way below grade level that they aren't really reading on their own yet, we can definitely talk about having them take the STAR Early Literacy instead, and then just have them on that over the course of the year. Okay, so what will the test be like? So in Kinder, again, your students will have headphones on. They'll sort of like hear these directions, and they'll answer them. You'll see up here in the top left, there's a picture of a Kinder item, and I want to point out this little button here that says Listen. This is where students can click, and it'll actually read them the sort of question. In first through third, instead, they're sort of reading the test. This item in the bottom left is an example. I think this is like a fourth grade level, so don't worry if that seems like a lot for your first graders. It will. This is something that they probably won't see unless they're very high readers. They'll be clicking to actually answer questions and then moving on. If they're taking the STAR math, they can use paper and pencil to sort of work out problems on the side, and then they can answer. And if they're taking both tests, so both reading and math, we're going to try and give them a break in between sections. That can either be in the same day, or in some cases we'll actually do it over 2 days. So maybe on the first day you have math, and on the second day you have reading. Alternatively, because I think these tests are so short, I think that it can also work to sort of have math in the morning and then go out and have recess and PE and lunch, and then come back during the afternoon and then take reading. So, any questions there?
Is there a tutorial for the kids in like the first slide or whatever that they see on how to use?
Sorry, Hannah, I think that's you, but I'm having trouble hearing you. Is there any way that you could speak up?
Yes. Is there like a tutorial for the first question that like shows them?
Yes, there is. So I'll actually get to that in a minute.
Okay.
But just hold that for a second, and then after I go through it, if you have anything else, then go ahead and ask them. Okay. All right. Moving right along. Okay. So how to get yourself ready for STAR Enterprise. So they're basically everyone needs to watch at least 2 videos. So everyone. I'm going to ask that you watch this, getting ready for STAR Enterprise video. It's 17 minutes, and these videos look like they were shot in like 1995. They have these giant, desktops, and everyone's got crazy hair and clothes, but they're, pretty good, and I think that they'll give you a good overview of sort of how the test works and what sort of information you can actually get out of it. For Kinder, there's a special STAR Early Literacy Assessment video, which is right here. There are 2 videos, STAR Math. These are pretty similar. If you just watch one, I think you're fine. And then the other one for math is, it basically just says that you can use, scratch paper and pencils. But if you have the time, it would be great to go through both. In terms of actually getting your, students ready, and Hannah, I think this goes to your question. Before they actually take the test, there's this sort of training warm-up thing that they do where it sort of shows them how to click, it shows them how to use the mouse, or if it's on an iPad, it shows them how to sort of tap it. And this happens right before the actual test. So there's no sort of separate training video, unfortunately. It's something they just do before the actual assessment. That being said, I'll send out a link next week to the actual assessments, and if you wanted to log in and load a sort of practice test, I think that would be great. You can show it on an LCD projector and just sort of go through it as a class. I think it'd be a great way to actually get your students ready. On top of that, it'd be great to sort of at least 1 week before you actually test, just sort of sit everyone down and tell them about the test, and there are 3 things to remind them. The first is that this is an adaptive test, and so they're going to see items that they haven't learned yet. This is going to sort of ask them about skills and standards that may be like above grade level, and that's okay. The point of this test isn't so much to see how much you've already how much you have already learned. It's sort of what you're ready to actually learn next. On top of that, even though this is on an iPad or a laptop, which I think many of our students have used to actually just play games with. This is a test, and so I think it's really important to just say, hey, like this is a test, it's serious, and we really want you to sort of try hard and do your best. With that is this idea that as a student, now and then you'll sort of see like other kids finish before you, and you'll think like, oh, I need to speed up, or like I'm not doing as well as that student. And I think it's really important just to say, hey, this isn't a race, and just because you see someone who finished before you doesn't mean that they're actually doing better than you. Any questions on that? Taking a beat. All right. So on testing day, we will come to your classroom early to help set up. If you are free and you have a minute, it's always great to have Anne just to sort of have some extra hands to help actually set up. But no worries if you aren't free. We can easily do it. And then after testing, it's always great to have a couple students help out in terms of wrapping up headphones or just having everything picked up. We'll bring Chromebooks or iPads, headphones, mice, cords, wipes, and we'll also bring a laptop that we will help you test. It will most likely be me coming out, and I have to say that I'm very excited to come out and see all of your students and your classrooms. So basically, I think the sort of takeaway is that we will basically bring everything to you. All you need to bring is your actual students. A quick note on Chromebooks. I don't know how many of you have used these before. I think there are some schools that have ordered some. We are going to try to use both iPads and Chromebooks during the pilot just to figure out which one actually works better. The one thing that I want to point out is that if you look here on the touchpad, there's no separate button with which you click. This is just like one big touchpad. So I've gone in and put stickers on the left-hand corner, basically just so kids know where to actually click. But we may have to do like a quick lesson before we test about like how to actually use these things. I think it shouldn't be an issue. And honestly, last year I found that most students did better using a trackpad than a mouse. So we will see what happens. But I think we should be all set. Okay, on your testing day, before testing, it'd be great if you could make some name cards and then have them on student desks. If they already have nameplates, that is fine. You are all set. Make sure that all desks are clear. If you're around to help set up and log in computers, great, but no worries if not. And if you're taking STAR Math, if you could have some paper and pencils on hand, that would be great. While we're actually testing, if you could walk around and just help students make sure that they're motivated and they're on task, etc. And make sure that they have some sort of quiet activity to do after testing. Hopefully this is something that isn't a game. We found that in the past that if you sort of have a game teed up that is online, if it's Study Island or any of these other online learning websites, that students tend to rush through their test. And then on top of that, just pay attention to the actual items and the questions, and be ready to share thoughts with us. I think that we sort of obviously want to hear your thoughts about the content, and I think the best way to do it is just to watch while your students actually test. After testing, we're going to ask you to give feedback through some survey or maybe an email, and if necessary, to give makeup tests to any students that were sick. I will show you how to log in. It's really easy to actually give these tests, but there may be obviously like a few kids who aren't there on the day that we come out. I will pause for a second for any questions.
Did you say for kids who were absent for makeup tests that we would have to get the technology back in, or we can use the classroom? So it's likely that you can use whatever is already on campus. If needed, I'm more than happy to put an iPad in the mail back out to you. Okay.
We've actually done it through the courier before, and it actually works really well. So yeah. So either way.
Thank you.
Sure. Anything else? All right, rad. Home stretch. So the last word on this, stipends are going to come out by the end of September, $750. I want to thank you all for being flexible as we get everything scheduled. I will be in touch by the end of the day tomorrow if we haven't found a time to test. And just keep in mind that we have our training day at the home office on October 4th, which is a Friday. where we'll basically learn how to actually use the software and think about how to use this data to actually plan lessons, and then learn about some of the resources that you can use to actually support that. Over the weekend, here's your homework. Watch your videos. Tell your students about testing at least 1 week before you test. I guess this isn't really your weekend homework, but just have that on your schedule. And then if you have any students who need modifications, if they've got a sort of visual impairment, or if they wear hearing aids, if you could shoot me an email just to let me know, and we can make sure that they are all taken care of when we show up to assess. That's all that I have. I'm more than happy to stay on the line for as long as you want, and I want to open it up to any questions, either in the chat, which looks like it's going off, or over phone.
Could you send us the video link?
Yes, I will. So I should have mentioned that. I will send you an email after this webinar with all of the links and this PowerPoint as well.
Okay.
And there's a question here in the chat box, viewer 8 and viewer 3. All right, viewer 8, are we using different curriculum? Would that affect different results in the end? So it's a great question. My sense is that there won't be, well, I don't know, hard to say. In that this is, Common Core aligned, I would say that if you're part of a, Common Core pilot school, that you might have a slight leg up, or if you're already teaching those standards, I think you might see a slight bump, but honestly, I don't think it'll make that much of a, difference. Is there anything that you want to follow up on that, viewer 8, whoever you are? Okay, I'll move on. Viewer 3, what should I do for a student with Down syndrome in my class? It's a great question. I'm not exactly sure. I can do some more reading, and I can get in touch with you directly. Whoever asked that question, if you could just shoot me an email after this, and I'm sure that we can get it figured out. And you're doing stepping stones. Great. Okay, so you already have a sense for sort of Common Core stuff. Any other questions? All right, thanks. Sounds good. All right, so I want to say thanks for joining. I realize it is the end of the day, and I, really appreciate you all making the time. As always, email me if anything comes up, or call. And yeah, have a great rest of your Thursday and your Friday and your weekend as well.
You too.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.